Hello, it's Miss LaRose. This project video is for creating a radial symmetry design with a stained glass effect created by tissue paper. If you don't know how to make a snowflake, I'm going to go through the steps for that first. I'm using black paper for mine because it's really easy to see, and if you have other colors of paper, you can go ahead and use those. The first steps are to fold it in half and then half again, just like this. And then the last step is to fold it diagonally across the lower point so that the two folded edges match up. And it's going to end up having a little bit of a triangular look to it. Now, if someone else in your family knows how to make snowflakes, they can help you figure that part out. It's a little bit tricky, but I know you can do it. I'm going to have you trim off the extra parts next, and then we're going to cut shapes out of this folded piece. Keep it folded the entire time. Do not cut a shape that goes all the way through to the other side, otherwise you're going to end up cutting your design into pieces. Make sure it only goes through the side that you cut into and then back out that same side. Okay? So I'm only cutting in from one side and then out from that same side. And I'm trying to create lots of different types of shapes, so I'm kind of going for some hearts, some zigzags, some triangles. Think about what you want your shapes to look like. They could all be triangles if you wanted to. They could be wavy shapes. They could be heart-based. You could try this a couple different times to come up with a design that you really like. You could practice on multiple pieces of paper if you need to. For the very end, I'm going to cut off a little bit off of the top part. This is the top of the snowflake shape, and the point is the center of the snowflake shape. So I cut a little bit out of the top part as well. Now you're going to have to take care of all your scraps. I recommend just sweeping them into a trash can. And then after you have your scraps taken care of, fold out your snowflake. You're probably also going to need to flatten it because it's been folded and you've been holding it together, so all of the creases in it want to pop up. It helps if you flip it over and flatten it on both sides. Once it's flat, you're going to need to gather bits of tissue paper. My bits are pretty small. You could have bigger ones if you want to use bigger ones. If you don't have colored tissue paper, but you have white tissue paper, you can color that first with markers before you do this step. I'm going to be putting glue on the back side of my snowflake in all of the places between my cutouts, and then just layering on these bits of tissue paper. And I'm putting them all over to cover up all of the gaps that you can see through. And what that's going to do is create the effect of a stained glass window, like the kinds that you see in church. I do this a little section at a time, so I don't like to glue the whole thing at once. I glue probably a third of it at a time, and then I work my way outward. Sometimes it can be nice to put two pieces of tissue paper over the same spot. That's going to create a new type of color when the sun shines through it, and you'll be able to see the color variation based on the different layering combinations you use. I also think it can be helpful to put a little bit of extra glue down if your pieces of tissue paper start popping up. So I don't like gluing it all at once, but I do like going back and adding a little bit of extra if it needs extra. Another thing that I like to do is try to make it so there's multiple colors in each of the cutouts. I don't like the cutouts to be just one color. Now for true radial symmetry, the cutouts would have matching colors all the way around, but we don't need to have true radial symmetry. The radial symmetry is found in the design of the snowflake, where you can divide it multiple ways and it still matches up. Even if you split it in half up and down, side to side, diagonally, they'll all match up. The color part doesn't matter so much, it's the snowflake part that shows the radial symmetry. So I'm just going to finish filling mine in, and then once it's filled in, I'm going to let it dry. Now some of my pieces stick off of the edge of the design where my snowflake is, and those I'm going to want to trim off after it's dry. I don't like to trim them off while it's still wet because sometimes they can peel off or they'll be really fragile and they'll tear. I only have a little bit of space left to fill in, so I'm just going to do that. So now that I've finished adding all the pieces I want, you can see there are pieces that stick off the sides a little bit. After it's dry, I'm going to trim them off, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done.